Welcome to episode 7 of Teachers Lift. Our team is excited to welcome 2 new hosts to the Lift. Eric and Jessica both work at the English Language Center at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and they'll be joining us on a regular basis into the future. Just to add one other interinstitutional flavor to the mix, Eric and Jessica are going to be chatting with Bea, an instructional designer at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. They'll be chatting about the many useful insights Bea has gained as she's tried to help teachers across the university going online over the past few months.
Okay, welcome everybody to the latest installment of the Teachers Lift podcast.
Yeah.
If you are hearing different voices, do not adjust your audio. We are mixing things up today a little bit and going with different hosts. My name is Eric Tindall.
And I'm Jessica. Hi.
And here's my partner in crime, Jessica Xia. We come from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, the English Language Center. We are teachers there. So this is the first episode of The Lift coming from PolyU.
Yay, our first one. And we have a very special guest with us.
Yes, we're very happy to be here today in The Lift. And what makes us even more happy is our lovely guest who has joined us here today, Miss Bea from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, the Center of Education Innovation. She is an instructional designer. So welcome, Bea.
Thank you very much for that lovely intro. I hope I live up to it. Maybe people might want to know what is an instructional designer, and I think I would like to say my full-time job is being a forever student. I feel like I'm a full-time student with no extra degrees to show for. That's an instructional designer.
That's a great way to put it.
So as an instructional designer, you must have had a very busy last 4 months.
Yes. I probably didn't know what I was doing because it's hard to help everybody at the same time. I guess the only difference is before we're trying to go to people's door to ask them like, hey, do you want to try flip classroom or do you want to turn your course into a MOOC? But in this situation, people were coming to our door and we were kind of just overwhelmed and overloaded. But, we saw that as a good thing. And I'm just glad that we had a good team to support. For me, I do the instructional design part. I have my other team members who do more on the tools and the tech part. So we working very well together back and forth. If there's something I didn't know, I asked them and then we would coordinate with the whole team to try to get the faculty the support they needed. So I felt like the team spirit really showed through and also people's willingness. So I think it was actually very inspiring, to be honest.
How many hours a week are you working now with so much demand?
To be honest, this week is actually a lot better, which is why I'm here. If you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have told you no. I'm busy supporting KUST staff. But I think before it was kind of like 18, 20-hour days almost. Going to 6:00 in the morning, wow. Waking up at 6, preparing training and then reading training 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow. And which platform do you use over at UST for these kind of trainings?
So the university strategically decided to choose Zoom because they only wanted one platform for everybody to learn. And so the training and the community of practice would be more, I guess, cohesive. So we had to quickly learn Zoom, quickly do all the testing, and then try to incorporate that into like an interactive lesson plan to kind of lead by doing, show them how we'd want them to do a lesson on using Zoom. So I think we kind of snuck that in there. They were expecting something more technical when in fact we allowed them to be a student first so that they can experience what it's like and they can kind of come up with the potential issues that they would face. And then that's when all of the good questions came in, and some of them I didn't have an answer for, but it was more like, maybe you should try this. And then someone else would, come in and say, actually last semester I tried this. And it turned out to be, the faculty sharing. So somehow it was a training that, let them be a student first, and then they put on their instructor hat, and then they started helping each other out. But I think the modeling really helped because we started to see, our lesson plans being used in their courses. And there's even one engineering course that got their students to build, like a projector using anything that they could find around the house. So, like they would use this and then they would attach something to it so that it would allow them to project their phone to show something that they were writing. So, students, had a blast doing that. And then the professor shared with us all of the artifacts that the students produced of, doing a DIY projector with their phones. And I thought that was pretty inspiring.
Wow, that sounds really fun. Do you think we can do that in a language classroom? Like, have any ideas how we can make that fun for our students in a language classroom?
Actually, I think, everybody has this agenda to get through, and we're forgetting to be very human about it, and forgetting that there's lots of opportunities for language usage and language practice, from, like energizers that we kind of forgot about because now we're just trying to do online teaching. Why not use energizers? Why not ask students to lead something and then show you and teach you through Zoom as well? Or, there was one where the teacher just needed a break and was like, you know what, Jessica, you look like you know a lot about stretches. We need a stretching practice right now. So the professor called on the student, and then the student was like, yeah, I'm really good at stretches. First, put your right hand over your, I thought that was really cute, and it loosened the whole class up. So I think it's interjecting those little human elements that gets the class going.
Yeah. That's a great thing. But Eric, I don't know about you. My students just won't turn on their cameras. Like, Eric, what about your students? Do they interact with you? Do they actually turn on their cameras?
Yes, it's a losing battle, I think, to ask them to turn on their cameras because they're very reluctant. Even their microphones, they're very reluctant, which you can somewhat understand considering, we don't know exactly where they are at the moment. But B, do you have any tips for teachers who are struggling with that aspect? Trying to get students to turn on their cameras or their microphones and trying to get them to participate in an online synchronous lesson.
Okay. So let's see. I think I'm trying to think about it from a student's perspective. They're at home. They may have a lot of noise going on in the background. So as much as I would want all of students to turn their cameras on, I know that it might not be practical and feasible. And I think it's important to remember that as well. Having said that, it is difficult to have a discussion if the mics are not on. And I think if they at least have their mics on, I think that's one step forward. So at least if that's the expectation to have their mics on, no matter what's going on in the background, chat. Instead of using the chat box, that's not very effective. And I've seen that happen where some students are using the chat box and some are using their mics and some are using webcams. So I suppose for this, we have to be mindful that their home environment is not helpful for their learning, and that's not something we can do. But at least if they can turn on their mic, that would help. Having said that, what can they do to liven up their class? Energizers I told you about. So Adam showed me the, Zoom bingo. Why can't we use that for our Zoom teaching to consolidate what they learned in the last class and have them, play bingo with it? Also, I just kind of want to say that the lesson plan, I think, is the same as it was in the face-to-face class. You still have, your warmer activity to motivate students. You still have, the giving them examples, generalizing it. And then you still have the application part so that they practice what they're doing, and they can do that with Google Forms. They can do that with, any kind of shared document where they're writing together. You can also give them a topic. I think Adam has done this in his face-to-face classes where he gets them to teach a class something different, something new. So, if they're able to break out into groups, they can, learn it themselves and then teach the class back so that you're putting the responsibility on the student instead. And then the debrief is still the same. They come back and they share. And when they have to share, they're going to be doing the work. And then they have to have their mics on. They have to participate. I think maybe the challenging thing is when they're in breakout rooms, if you guys are using something that allows breakout rooms, you don't have control. And the students are kind of lost. So I think providing clear instructions and a general template to guide them is just going to make your life a lot easier. And you're not as worried when they all leave the main room, worried about what they're doing, because they already have one simple template to follow, and they will know what they need to report on. And usually, I mean, I always tell the professors to keep it simple. You're not going to expect them to present 5 slides in an hour. Just give them 1 slide. And then have them, present their work.
Yep.
And I think modeling is important, because if you're not giving them an example, they don't know what to give you, and they're all shy. Yep. So I think being human and sharing your own personal story or modeling the example will really help give students the idea and give them direction, so that when they go into the breakout room, they're not thinking, what are we doing? I have no idea. They know what to expect. And I think having a group leader really helps. And I've repeated this for all of the professors, to assign someone as a group leader so that they can keep the group discussion on track, and also they're the ones that will help to facilitate when you're not in there.
Do you recommend teachers to join the rooms during like that 1 hour and just talk to the students, or
I mean, when I was doing the training with 200 faculty, we had 25 breakout rooms. I think we had 3 people with us, so like we all split it up, but we all made sure we visited all the rooms just to kind of check in. And then if they know you might be coming, they're probably going to be more motivated to stay on track as well. But I mean, I would definitely recommend for you to, go in and visit and jump in. I guess another activity that might work is jigsaw reading activities, or brainstorm activities that they're all kind of working on a document. So maybe if they're not talking, at least they're all working on something or reading something. I think all those can still work in a language teaching environment. It's the same face-to-face. It's just how you implement it online is a little bit different, but not impossible.
True. Yes. I've had that with my students, like in the breakout rooms. When I go in, I hear them saying, she's coming. and then I feel like, oh, okay, I don't want to interrupt them. So in a way, I was just thinking, should I be going? Like, am I interrupting them? So then sometimes if I let them work on a Google Doc or something, like collaboratively together, I can actually monitor what they're doing. And then once I see them kind of stopping, then I go in. So I don't really feel like I'm interrupting them that much. So I guess it's just something that we figure out, like the momentum with our students as well. Eric, have you had any challenges with like breakout rooms and just online teaching in general?
Well, yes. I think we've all had those challenges.
Your challenges.
So B, you're an instructional designer. You were kind of developing e-learning before e-learning became cool, right? So I'm sure a couple months ago, a lot of people, a lot of professors, a lot of staff at Hong Kong UST came to you and asked, "Oh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?" So if I'm a teacher and I find out I have to convert my course to an online course, to an online format, what is the first thing that you recommend that I do?
You're not going to do it overnight. Is my first piece of advice. And you should probably spend a long time working it out. But to be honest, if you had to do it overnight, I would tell you that less is more. I would tell you to think about, what objective can you achieve over the next few weeks, and kind of plan your lesson around an activity that will help you achieve that objective. So just kind of students. And it also depends, because are they expected to do work before they come to the class, and or is that all happening in class? I think, I would probably ask you more questions than I could give you answers to. And when people think about online learning, I think there's this misconception that you just throw everything online and students do it, and that's a misconception, because you actually have to plan from the in-class work first so that you know what to put online to support students for that in-class work. I don't know if I answered your question, but I mean, I would think about the objective of your lesson and what is reasonably possible to put online and throw away the rest.
Right. So what do you think is the biggest mistake that teachers make when they're, doing this converting to online learning? Because I'm sure you have many stories of professors who have made pretty glaring mistakes or have had pretty tremendous difficulties making this conversion. So what do you think, what is the biggest mistake that tends to happen?
So you're talking about like a full blended learning conversion?
Yes, or just anything that we've been doing, over the last few months of the universities in Hong Kong and around the world as they try to move all their courses from a face-to-face format into an online format. Is there any mistake that really stands out and that you've observed negatively affects the quality of the teaching?
I don't want to say mistakes. I think the biggest is managing students' expectations. And why is that important? Because students don't know what's going on, and maybe we expect for them to know how to do things when in fact they need time to adjust. They need training, and they need to know, exactly what the outcome is. So I think we tend to forget that, and we think, students already know online and they can do it all, and in fact they need a lot of hand-holding. So I think that's the mistake. So besides giving too much, expecting that they know things and assuming that they can get on with it. And I guess the final thing is students not being able to see the connection so for example, the midterm, you're using the same midterm as you were doing with the face-to-face materials, and in fact you didn't cover that in your online materials, and then now you're still testing them on it. So there's not that alignment, and students are very upset about that. And I think that was a big thing where people think they can just take what they've done in the face-to-face and then fully transfer it online. And that's never ever the case, because whenever you're doing something online, you do have to think about what is good to go online, what is good to go face to face, and again, what can I take out? Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you think from a student's perspective sometimes when you're doing this. You put yourself in the student's shoes. So what do you think a student wants to see from the online materials, or what does the student expect to see from online materials?
I think they expect it to not take a long time. So reasonable workload, the first thing they're going to worry about is the workload, like you're telling me to do all this work online. How much time have you actually given me? So if I'm talking about like a flipped classroom, it's usually 1 hour or 1 hour and a half. We make sure we give them just an hour of online materials. We don't overwhelm them. We don't overdo it. And if we are giving them more than they have to, that's supplementary. Like it's, if you want to have more information, go ahead and do that. And I think after that, they expect what they're doing online to be transferable to what they're going to be doing in the class. Otherwise, why did I do it online? So, for example, if you're asking them to do something and they're not getting feedback, then they'll probably wonder, why did you ask me to do that? So there's no audience for them, right? So, I think there's a difference of giving them work to keep them busy or giving them work with a purpose. And again, I go back to the objective, and this is something I always stress whenever I'm working with professors is, what's the objective of this? What do you expect students to do and why? So I think students are very simple. They're practical. They don't want a lot of work, and they want to do something for a purpose. And I think if we fulfill these two things, they're pretty happy about it, because they can study all that stuff on their own. They can take as much time as they want, and they know the work is fair. You've, told them that you were given an hour of online materials, and I'll give you an hour online. So if your classes are 3 hours, you say, okay, class is now going to be 2 hours. And this hour of online you can do on your own. They'll feel happy about that.
Yeah, from the feedback that you've been getting from students, they really enjoy this mode of learning.
Yeah. And, some professors can't keep to the 1 hour and a half, for example. They'll go on for 2 hours. Students will notice and say, this professor, everything is 2 hours, although they've only allocated an hour and a half to us online. Just okay.
That's a great tip. What do you think students like most about online learning or blended learning? What do you think the element is for them? What do they enjoy most?
To be honest, it's being able to review the materials on their own time, at their own time, place, and space. Okay, time meaning when they're mentally alert. So I don't like 8:30 lessons. I'm going to look at these materials 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Fine. Or they also like it in bite-sized chunks. So, like the videos or the materials, they can, stop it at any time. They can, come back to it after 30 minutes and then decide, okay, I'm going to continue reading this article. I'm going to continue watching these next 2 videos. They also can study with their friends because, just like if you're taking a math course or something, if you have a study group, you'll probably, be more motivated. And I think if there's materials online, they can study with their friends and they'll be more motivated to study. And also they can study it anywhere, like while they're walking, while they're on the train, we get feedback from students saying, I wish the videos were lower quality so I can watch it on the train. I'm like, what? We prefer higher quality, but okay. So then we give the students a lower quality video so they can download on their phone and watch it on the train on their way to school. I mean, most of them come from faraway places, like an hour to get to UST or an hour and a half. So by then they can finish their whole online lecture and they feel like they've saved a lot of time.
You bring up a great point that the students really appreciate the autonomy of the format. They like how they can review these materials at any time of the day or night, whenever they're feeling, most ready for them, and they can review them over and over and over again. Of course, this lines up with a lot of the research on online learning.
Yeah.
So my next question then is kind of connected to that, which is, are the synchronous lessons absolutely necessary? Because the synchronous lessons, take place at a certain fixed time, 10:30, 10:30 to 11:30. If we're going to tell the students, you're only allowed to learn this from 10:30 to 11:30 on a Wednesday, isn't that kind of contrary to the whole idea of autonomy being the main focus of online learning?
Can I ask a question before I answer? When you're saying they can only learn that from this hour to this hour, does that mean like giving a live lecture? Does that mean like in the actual lesson? Or
I'm just referring to your typical synchronous lesson over Zoom, where the teacher is interacting with the students in real time. This synchronous lesson only happens at a certain time of the day, a certain time of the week. Is that even necessary? If the students really appreciate the autonomous factor, then isn't that kind of undermining to say, well, you have to show up now to do the second half at this given time?
Yes and no. I'm going to give you a non-answer, mainly because it depends on what the purpose is. Because if you're there all at the same time because you need to have group discussions and you need live feedback from the instructor, then you should be there. But if it's lecture based and it's beneficial for students to watch that before they come to class, then maybe you don't need to have that. So I guess what I'm thinking about is if you lecture at home, it doesn't have to be synchronous. If you are doing homework in class altogether, then it should be face-to-face and live. So I guess it depends on the expectation. If I'm taking a fully online class, I won't expect that. But if I'm in university and I have paid for it and I expected this live session, then I would expect it. But of course, some students feel better, to have a 3-hour lecture, and some students feel like they need to do some kind of application, hands-on activity. So I think, it varies as well. And again, it's about the expectation.
Right. So
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, exactly. It makes perfect sense. So it's kind of up to the teacher then to decide how necessary and the subject, and there are a lot of moving parts, variable factors here. But you're talking earlier about some of the benefits of these non-synchronous materials, these online materials, online lectures that they can review. We're kind of wondering at PolyU, and I'm sure elsewhere, are there some areas of online learning where we can achieve things that just aren't possible in a face-to-face format?
I guess let me give a short answer and then I'll extend on that. So I think it's possible to do activities online, like to have students practice something and they can spend time practicing that. So there's some kind of instant feedback that online environment gives you that the face-to-face can't, right? So it's just like what you were talking about, Jessica. You're able to now see 10 Google Sheets at the same time. And then if you were able to see that and then, quickly give feedback, then students would get that feedback. They would know exactly what to do by the time they come to class. And now they would have excellent questions to ask you. So I think in general, the short answer to that question, Eric, is it's just possible for them to prepare online first before they can come with ideas, come with good questions in the face-to-face class. And to be honest, in language teaching the way it is currently, we don't give students a lot of online work before they come to class. So that's why, there might be a bit of struggle when they do come to class. So if you put, some online for them to prepare ahead of time, I think the face-to-face class will be richer. They'll have more to discuss. They'll actually want to show you what they did, or they want to show their peers what they did.
Right. What I've kind of experienced, and I don't know if you agree with this, or Jessica as well. We were talking earlier about how students are very reluctant to participate, to turn on their mics, turn on their cameras. But actually, I found that even though they're more reluctant to actually speak, they're more willing to participate using the chat function, because this is kind of the barrier to entry is a little bit lower when they're just chatting online, because there's nothing really to lose. Nobody can see their face, nobody can see who they are. So when you ask a question, it's kind of nice to then see 5 or 6 people chiming in with answers, which is something you might not do in a face-to-face classroom. You might stop after you get two answers. So I found actually, the students are more willing to participate, although it's not, the best way of participation just by chatting it in. But at least I've kind of found that one of the surprises of this format is they're more willing to speak out because they're less inhibited in this online chatting format. And I don't know if you've observed similar experiences.
The chat function for me has been quite weird at times, because I keep waiting for someone to finish typing, and that takes forever. And so I'm just sitting there waiting for this student to type, and then it ends up just being a very random question. So yeah, I do understand what you're talking about, Eric. And I do feel like students are very comfortable using the chat function because they're doing that on their phones all the time with their friends. And it's something that's very natural to them, and they do participate a lot using the chat function.
Yeah, I think they're just in their element, they're just always used to texting. They probably feel more comfortable, and it's kind of their barrier.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a mask they hide behind, I suppose.
Yeah. Yes.
I think it's good. I mean, although it's English language, they should be speaking, but I think if they're expressing their opinions, they are participating, and you just have to look at it in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
those shy students who wouldn't normally raise their hand to speak are actually speaking on the chat. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. And they keep saying, hi, bye, thank you, like all of that in the chat box. Normally when I leave a classroom face-to-face, students won't be saying, thank you so much, bye, like they just leave. But then, in an online lesson, they do have that kind of interaction, and it's quite sweet and warm to see, especially evening lectures go on till like 9:30 p.m. and they're saying, thank you so much, good night, things like that. Yeah, it just brings a human element to it. And you were talking about that as well earlier on. I remember one of our colleagues had this tip for everyone. So she has this bird, and she would have the bird sit on her shoulder, like during her synchronous sessions. And then the students actually, like when the bird's not there, the students would be like turning on their mics and saying, "Hey, where's your bird? I miss your bird." You know, those human elements. And then other students had like their cat, you know, just jumping on their laptops and accidentally turning on their mics. And I just hear like it sounds like that. And the student would turn on their mic and say, "I'm so sorry, my cat just jumped on my laptop." And then I would just kind of follow up with a question. I was like, "Wow, does your cat want to answer that question? Hey," you know, something like that. So it really just brings some sort of liveliness to the class. And I think that's really important, because I think we all miss interaction with students. Like just curious. Like, you were a teacher before for a very long time, and then you moved to being an instructional designer. Do you ever miss like interaction with your students?
Yes and no. Okay, but let me tell you why. Because I feel like I'm with students in spirit. Like whenever I'm designing a course, I'm thinking about them. I'm thinking about how they would react. So to be honest, I think it's a trade-off, because I actually really enjoy observing someone else who's really good at teaching and connecting with the students, because I go in to observe the class, and to be able to see a professor engage 100 students and they're kind of all nodding because they've already got that online input. I just think, like, you know what, that's great, because my objective is focusing on the bigger picture, which is making sure all departments focus on student-centered learning, not just the English Language Center. And with that, I think I'm okay to kind of let someone else do that, and, you know, have me kind of watch them do it, because I think it's a big shift for them and they enjoy it, you know, for them to go away from being a sage on the stage to a guide on the side. It's hard work. And when I see it, like halfway through the semester, they're awesome at it. And then the students are fully engaged and we get positive feedback from students. I think, like, yeah, it's worth it. So what I care more about, it's the whole institutional shift. And, you know, to follow the teaching principles of the language centers all around the world, I think I'm okay to give that up.
Such a great answer.
Bea, you were talking before about this kind of this shift, and we kind of want to transition now to the future. I'm sure you've been observing a lot of changes over the last few months, and how faculties, departments, professors perceive online teaching and learning. You know, presumably we're all going to go back to a normal face-to-face environment at some point in the future. But do you think there are any changes that you've been observing that might be permanent fixtures going forward? Like something that, you know, something we've tried and we realize, oh yeah, we're gonna keep this even when we have face-to-face classes.
Honestly, I think it's the interactive element, because when I was training the 200 professors, I don't know if they thought about interactive. I mean, that term interactive before, but now whenever we're talking with them, they tell us, oh, you know, I tried this. I wanted students to have a discussion. I tried this activity. And then students didn't respond. I did a poll. I used this. And before it was just lecturing. And now they're just using all of these e-learning terms that I never thought they would use before. So somehow I think this idea of active learning, interactivity, is just kind of natural now, because for UST, for example, the provost was saying that we want live interactive classes. So that term interactive is coming out of everybody's mouth now. And I think that's a good shift. And I think that will, I mean, it's not widespread now, but it will start, and it will be kind of spiraling, I think, much faster than it was before.
So fascinating. You think it's not going to be just the language departments that are striving for interactive lessons. You think this is going to be a permanent change over all the different faculties and different departments. How about you personally? I'm sure, you know, you've observed a lot over the last half year. What personally has the last 4 months taught you?
I don't know what it has taught me personally, but it's taught me a lot about people, that people can change the way they do things on a global scale if they have to, and they can do it fast. And at the end of the day, we all care, and we're trying to do, our best to make it work. Even those that are resistant. And I also think that there's a silver lining to most situations. So where there is chaos, there is also opportunity. I see a great opportunity here, and I'm ready for it. I'm ready to ride it, which is why I don't mind putting in 18, 20-hour days. And I really like the fact that I don't have to sell the benefits of online learning anymore, but I do need to provide more support for it. COVID-19 hit the world by surprise, and it somehow united the whole world in the struggle to find toilet paper. And also the struggle to quickly adapt and provide support to each other. And I think it's truly amazing, all of the support that's pouring in, all of the resources that are pouring in, all of the free resources that are pouring in from all of these private companies. Like now I'm getting emails of them saying like, oh, we're giving it to you for free now. You don't have to have the premium account. I really think that's awesome. So, things like Padlet, you only had 3 that you could use, but now they'd be offering the free account. So now you can have 30 Padlets. But I think if I have to say something for language teaching, I think I'm seeing a shift of more towards skill-based, competency-based rather than proficiency. And that social movement really triggered the desire for students to learn about sources, learn about language, tone, audience, that they never, really thought about that deep before. And we had to sell it to them. And that's something we don't have to do now. And I think it's been positive somehow in that sense. So it's given me a lot of hope, and I'm very, very excited. I think there's lots of change happening in teaching and learning, and it's going in my direction. But I also still feel like there's so much I don't know, and there's so much I have to learn, and there's so much I have to learn from teachers and their experience to try to make sure we're not overloading teachers, we're not overloading students, we're finding a balance for everybody so that people don't hate online learning, they can appreciate it. And I think that balance is actually really hard to get. So I think focusing on meeting the teachers' needs and the students' needs should be the core of anything that we do, whether it's online or face-to-face. And I try to think about that often. So now I'm thinking about it from the teacher's perspective too, and trying to push back, not try to push too much. So small victories are good.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think we're all going to be like sitting down and reflecting on these like couple of months, what we've learned, how we can take that into our teaching in the coming year. I think that's when hopefully we'll have you on this podcast again, maybe. Like you can give us some long-term tips on if we really want to restructure a course, for example, like we really want to learn from like the great experiences we had with students online, and we want to put that back into our course. What are some things that we need to do? And I think that's where your expertise come in. So hopefully we can have you on this podcast again.
Yeah, can I just say one thing to that?
Yeah.
And just because, I was there, I think having a team that supports it is really important, because if you're going to have a team of half supporting it and half not, it's just not going to work out. So I think if you are planning that, I would start, contacting people to be part of that team who are truly on board with it, because only then will they also sell that idea to the students.
Mm-hmm.
My greatest challenge of working with people who don't believe in it. And that makes it challenging. So that's the first step.
A little disclaimer here. Bea mentioned it. Bea just referred to it before. Bea did work at PolyU before, so she's an ex colleague of Jessica and mine, and we're very happy to see her again on the Lift podcast, and to hear some of some of her views on instructional design and some of the experiences and some of the changes she's observed over the last few months. So thank you very much, Bea, for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I miss you guys a lot, and I miss planning with you.
Yes, and I really miss our philosophical discussion that we want to have somewhere.
Teachers Lift is an interinstitutional collaborative endeavor produced by colleagues at the English Language Center at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, the Center for Language Education at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and the Center for Applied English Studies at the University of Hong Kong. We hope you've enjoyed the content we've prepared for you today. If you have, please subscribe to the podcast and like or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever your preferred social media source is. You can find all the links on our website at teacherslift.com.